This is The Raven's Feather, written by Beryl Coops.
The Raven Feather is a quiet, eerie tale of a mother's courage and living folklore. For readers who love modern legends, strange houses, and mysteries that keep you awake past midnight.
The Raven's Feather.
Chapter 1. The Feather in the Crib. The sound didn't belong to the night. Bethany woke with her heart already racing, as if it had been running while she slept. From somewhere outside, a raven called, low and rough, a broken horn dragged across the dark. She lay still, listening. The room was cold on her face. The digital clock glowed 12:17. Another call. Closer. She reached for the baby monitor on the bedside table. Its screen should have shown the soft grey view of the nursery. Instead, it was dark. No green light. No small hum. Dead. "Come on," she whispered, pressing the power button. Nothing. She checked the plug. Firm in the wall. She'd charged it before bed. She always charged it before bed. Her throat tightened. "Maisie?" The third call from the raven sounded as if it perched just beyond the window. Bethany threw back the covers and crossed the hall barefoot. The house was old, with floors that complained at each step. Tonight they seemed to hold their breath. The nursery door stood slightly open. A line of light cut the dark landing, warm yellow like a slice of day trapped in the frame. Bethany remembered turning the light off. She was sure of it. She always did the same last steps. Light off, kiss on the forehead, blanket tucked, monitor set, door closed. Quiet, like a spell. She pushed the door wider. "Maisie?" Her voice came out small. The room was neat. The curtain at the window hung still. The little chair in the corner waited, the pale blanket folded over its arm. The nightlight, shaped like a moon, smiled from the wall. The lamp on the dresser burned steady, too bright for this hour. The crib was empty. For a second her mind refused to understand. Her eyes told her the truth, and her thoughts argued back. Perhaps Maisie had rolled to the corner and tucked herself under the bumper. Perhaps Bethany was looking at the wrong cot, the wrong room, the wrong night. She stepped to the crib, hands on the rail. The mattress was cool. The sheet was still smooth from where she had smoothed it, a habit learned in the months after the baby was born, when routine meant survival. In the middle of the sheet lay a single black feather. It was long and glossy, deeper than black, with a faint rainbow shine that slid across it when she moved. Bethany stared at it. The feather did nothing. It was just there, placed with care, pointing toward the window. She reached for Maisie's blanket, the one with the yellow stars. She lifted it, shook it, ran her hand beneath. No warm body, no tiny hand, no breath on her fingers. Her chest began to hurt from how she was holding it tight. "Maisie!" The name broke. She dropped to her knees and looked under the crib. Dust, a wooden block with the letter M, a lost sock. No baby. She pulled open the closet. Tiny dresses hung quiet, feet of sleepers touching. She moved them aside as if Maisie could be hiding between them, playing a game. The laundry basket was empty. The toy chest held only toys. "Maisie!" she called again, louder. The sound bounced off the walls and fell flat. The window locks were set. She checked them twice, then a third time, fingers trembling. The sash was down hard. The latch was turned. The glass held her reflection, pale and frightened, and beyond it the night pressed back. The ledge outside was bare, clean of prints or smudges or anything at all. She tried the door to the tiny balcony. They had bolted it months ago. Still bolted. She ran downstairs. The front door's chain was on. The deadbolt was turned. She slid it back and opened the door, half expecting to see someone standing there with her child. The stoop was empty. Cold air stepped in and touched her face. A street lamp hummed. The road was quiet. No footsteps. No car idling. Back door, the same. Locked. The small window above the sink was latched, its seal unbroken. The cellar door held the old iron bolts she never forgot to slide, because the cellar smelled like earth and always felt like a mouth. Bethany moved through the rooms fast now, calling, looking. Bathroom, linen cupboard, behind the sofa under tables, inside the big cardboard box left from the new stroller. Each place she searched made the world smaller. When she found the monitor camera in the nursery, she saw that it had been turned toward the corner, pointed at the wall instead of the crib. That made her colder than anything else. She had left it aimed at Maisie. She knew she had. Who had moved it? Her fingers were clumsy on her phone. She tapped 999 and hit call. Emergency. Which service? "Police," she said, voice shaking. "My baby is gone." The call handler's questions came steady and slow. A rope tossed across a storm. Bethany grabbed it. Name. Address. "How old is your baby?" 9 months. Last seen? 11 o'clock. Was anyone else in the house? No. Did you notice anything unusual? A sound, a bird, no, a raven, and the baby monitor was off. Yes, the doors are locked. Yes, the windows. No, there's no sign of a break-in. No, I don't know how. We're sending officers, the voice said. Stay on the line with me. Can you go to the front door and turn on the outside light? They'll be there soon. Bethany did as she was told. Her hands moved while her mind ran in circles. She flicked on the porch light. The bulb threw a thin cone onto the steps, lighting nothing and everything. She left the door open and hovered, torn between the nursery and the street. As she waited, the raven called again. This time it was so close she swore it perched on the gutter just above her. She tilted her head. A dark shape shifted against a darker sky. 2 hard beads of eyes watched her. It made a soft click in its throat and dropped something. The small thing landed on the porch rail. Bethany stepped closer. Another feather, smaller than the one in the crib, curled at the tip as if someone had held it too tight. She reached out. The feather was warm. The siren was faint at first, then swelled, then cut short. A car door thudded. Heavy shoes on stone. A firm voice. "Miss Hale?" She didn't notice him use her name until later. At that moment, all she could see was the blue flash painting the hallway wall, and all she could feel was the space in the crib, still and cold. 2 officers came inside. The older one introduced himself as Sergeant Doyle. The younger was Constable Reed. They were careful with their words. They were careful with where they looked. People who walked into other people's worst nights learned to be careful. "Show us, please," Doyle said. Bethany led them up the stairs. The house seemed to tilt as they climbed, as if it wanted to spill them out. At the nursery door, she stopped and gripped the frame so hard her knuckles blanched. She forced herself to step over the threshold first. The crib waited. The feather lay where it had lain. The lamp lit everything too well. Reed checked the window locks, the balcony bolt, the closet, the bathroom, the hall. Doyle spoke softly, asking questions. Bethany had already answered on the phone, but he asked them anyway, the way one traces a shape with a finger to learn it by touch. "When you put her down, anything different?" he asked. "No," Bethany said. "I sang the song. I set the monitor. I turned off the light." Her voice cracked, but the light was on. Reed crouched by the crib and looked at the feather without touching it. "Do you keep feathers in here?" he asked gently. "No," Bethany said. I wouldn't." A quiet passed between them. Reed stood. Doyle nodded once, as if making a private promise. He stepped aside to speak into his radio. Bethany heard words she'd never wanted to hear in her home. Missing infant, no sign of forced entry. They asked her to sit. They asked if there was someone they could call. She gave them her mother's number without thinking. Her hands felt far away from her arms. When Bethany looked to the window again, the raven was gone. The gutter brim was empty. The night had settled back in, as if nothing had moved at all. Downstairs, another car arrived. Footsteps, low voices, a soft knock, and then a woman in a dark jacket came in, bringing a cooler air with her. More questions. A small flashlight. Gloves that snapped. Bethany stood, then sat, then stood again. She kept seeing Maisie as she had been at 11, heavy-lidded, full of warm milk, a little fist twisted in the edge of her blanket. The way her mouth had opened for the pacifier. The way her lashes touched her cheeks like tiny strokes of paint. "Miss Hale," Doyle said, "we're going to look through the house again, very carefully. Is that all right?" Bethany nodded. Her yes felt thin. He paused at the nursery door and glanced back at her. His eyes were kind and something else, tired, maybe, or wary. "We'll find out what we can." Bethany listened as they moved through rooms she knew in the dark better than she had known them in the day. She heard doors opening and closing, the soft beep of the back door being tested, the creak of the cellar bolts sliding, the kitchen window latch clicking, all the sounds of safety now turned into questions. She went to the crib. The feather shone on the sheet like a piece of night left behind. She stared at it until her eyes watered. Outside, somewhere beyond the porch light's reach, the raven called once more. Then the house was quiet again, as if it too were listening. Chapter 2. No door, no footprints. They worked the house like a puzzle. Sergeant Doyle's voice stayed calm as he set people moving. Constable Reed took photos of the nursery from every angle. A woman in a white suit dusted the window latch and the crib rail. She lifted the black feather with tweezers and slid it into a small clear bag. Someone checked the radiator cover. Someone checked the tiny screws on the balcony bolt. They spoke in low tones, careful not to say anything that would make the air break. Bethany sat on the landing at first, hands locked together so she didn't reach into the crib again. She tried to hold on to facts. The monitor had been dead, the camera had been turned to the wall, the windows were locked, the doors were bolted. She had put Maisie down at 11. These were points on a line. The line did not lead anywhere. Miss Hale? Reed crouched so his eyes were level with hers. We're going to bring in a dog. Is there anything of your daughter's we can use for scent? Bethany stood too fast and the world tilted. Her blanket, she said and pointed. The yellow stars. It's the one from tonight. Reed nodded, slow and kind. We'll use it. Thank you. Downstairs the doorbell rang, then rang again. A rush of cold came in before Doyle closed it. Family? He asked over his shoulder. My mum, Bethany said, already moving. Ruth Hale looked smaller in the doorway, as if the night had pressed her down. Her coat was thrown over pyjamas. She had not bothered with shoes, only old slippers dark with wet. She saw her daughter and pulled her close. For a moment, Bethany let herself lean into the hug and be a child again. Then she pulled back and shook her head. We'll find her, Ruth said. She said it like a promise and a prayer. Neighbours had gathered on the pavement, drawn by lights and sirens. Dressing gowns, coats over shoulders, arms folded tight against the cold. The house across the road, Mrs. Pryor's, had its porch light on. She stood on the steps with a mug cupped in both hands and a look that meant trouble had come live on their street and might not leave. Please keep the path clear, Doyle said as he stepped out. We need space for the dog team. A van arrived. A handler climbed out with a black and tan dog dancing on the lead, nose high, eager. The handler spoke with Doyle, then came inside and took the blanket from Reed. He let the dog smell it, spoke a quiet word, then began to work the ground floor, nose sweeping, tail going. The lead pulled toward the back door, then toward the hall, then up the stairs. The dog went to the nursery doorway, froze, sniffed the air and whined. The handler waited, gave him time, then tried again. The dog whined once more and sat. What does that mean? Bethany asked, voice small. The handler glanced at Doyle. He has the scent, he said, but it's not leaving the room. They tried the garden. The dog followed the blanket scent down the back steps, circled and came back, confused. No strong trail, no clear line to follow. The handler shook his head once. Could someone have used the cellar? Ruth asked, her hand tight on Bethany's elbow. The bolt was on, Reed said, from the inside. Crawl space? Another officer suggested. None, Doyle answered. It's an old stone foundation. They went over everything again. The window latches, the sill, the paint around the balcony bolt, the door edges, the camera mount. Reed opened the fuse box and checked for a tripped switch. Nothing was out of place. He tried the monitor base and the charger. Both worked. He held up the handheld monitor and frowned. Battery's drained, he said, but it should have been charging. I plugged it in, Bethany said. I do it every night. Reed checked the cable, the plug head, the brick. This is fine, he murmured, more to himself than to anyone. He put the monitor in a bag. They asked for doorbell footage from the neighbours. 2 houses had cameras. Both faced the street. Officers took copies. Someone went to the end of the road to check the council camera at the junction, though Doyle said it was pointed the wrong way for anything useful. He said they would check anyway. Hours slid. The blue lights kept the house in a slow blink. Dawn did not come. Not yet. Time in this kind of night felt made of rubber, stretching and snapping, never settling. Bethany tried to make tea, because that is what you do when people come to your home and there is a problem. The kettle boiled, then cooled on the counter untouched. Ruth took the mug and held it like a warm stone. Do you want me to call Adam? Ruth asked softly. He'll come. Bethany pictured her younger brother driving too fast in the dark and shook her head. Not yet, she said. Not yet. A woman from Family Liaison sat with them at the kitchen table. She introduced herself as Syra Khan and spoke in a voice built from soft edges. She asked about Maisie's day, her nap time, her dinner, her bath. She asked about visitors, deliveries, repairs. She asked about Bethany's work, her routines, her friends. It felt like being folded and unfolded. Bethany answered, because the questions needed answers, and because answering made her feel like she was doing something. At the door, 2 boys from 3 houses down tried to peer past Doyle's shoulder. Mrs. Pryor shooed them back. "Go on," she said. "Show some sense." "What happened?" one of them asked. "Is it true the baby?" "Home," Mrs. Pryor said, sharper now. "Now." Rumours moved faster than the dog. Someone said a white van had been seen at midnight, though no one could say where. Someone said the back gate latch was loose, though it had been loose for months. Someone said, "We heard a bird, didn't we? A big one." And someone else said, "It's only a raven. They eat rubbish." And a third voice said, "Magpies are the thieves." And the first shot back, it wasn't a magpie. In the nursery, the woman in the white suit had finished. She had found no prints that did not belong there. She had found no tool marks at the latch. She had found no fibres stuck on the bolt. She had found nothing except the long, dark feather, now sealed in plastic. "Sometimes nothing is an answer," Doyle said quietly when he stepped out to the landing. It was not a comfort. He knew it. Just before 4, the raven came back. Bethany felt it before she heard it, the sense of being watched that makes your scalp prickle. She looked up the stairs toward the window at the end of the hall. A shape moved on the gutter, cut out of what little light there was. The bird turned its head and the world narrowed to that small, bright eye. It clicked in its throat once, twice, then it ruffled its wings and was gone. Ruth had seen it too. "Horrid thing," she said, but in a weak way, as if the word did not fit right in her mouth. Syra glanced up, followed the line of their eyes, then looked back at Bethany. "Birds are just birds," she said, not unkind. "Let's stay with what we know." "Do you know," Mrs. Pryor called from the porch, as if she could not hold the words any longer. "My gran used to say ravens were messengers. Not bad, not good, just messengers." Doyle gave her a level look that asked for quiet without embarrassing her. She dipped her head but added, half under her breath, "There's a story round here, from the old farm days, about a raven that keeps watch. My gran called it the keeper." She frowned as if pulling a word from a bramble. The Raven Keeper, that was it. Bethany felt the name land inside her, like a tiny stone dropping into deep water. It did not make a splash, it sank. "What's the story?" she asked. Mrs. Pryor hesitated. Her eyes slid to Ruth, then to the officers. "It's only a tale," she said, "for children who wander, for doors left open." She rubbed her thumb around the lip of her mug. "It says the keeper takes what's not watched, but keeps it safe, brings it back when the debt is paid." She swallowed. "It's only a tale," she said again, and went back inside. Syra touched Bethany's arm. "Stories can help us feel less helpless," she said, "but we're going to deal with what we can see." Bethany nodded because that was the right answer. But the name would not leave her. It sat in the back of her mind and watched, the way the raven had watched from the gutter. By 5, the sky in the east had softened. It was not day, but it was no longer night. The dog team left, the handler mumbling an apology for not finding a trail. The woman in the white suit carried her case to the van. Reed took another slow walk through the rooms, as if a missing door might have grown in the last hour, and he could find it if he looked at the walls from just the right angle. "Get some rest if you can," Syra said. "We'll have people here through the morning." Bethany nodded again. Rest, as if sleep were a thing you could decide to have. She went to the nursery and stood in the doorway, not crossing the line. The crib looked normal now, blanket folded, sheet straight, no feather. The camera faced the wall like a sulking child, no door, no footprints, a raven on the gutter, a name like a whisper at the edge of town. When Bethany finally lay down, she kept her eyes open and watched the thin slice of light under the nursery door. She listened for wings. She listened for the soft sound of a baby breathing and heard only the house. Chapter 3. The house that knows daylight made the house look honest again. The officers were polite but tired. By mid-morning, only Reed and Syra remained inside. Reed moved with slow care, writing notes, checking small things twice. Syra stayed near Bethany and Ruth, speaking when needed, leaving silence when words would not help. Neighbours came with plates of food they did not expect anyone to eat. Someone left flowers at the gate. A woman Bethany barely knew pressed a little knitted hat into her hand and cried. Bethany thanked her because there was nothing else to do. Mrs. Pryor appeared late morning with a tin of shortbread and a look that said she had slept not at all. "I don't mean to intrude," she told Ruth at the door, "but I've been thinking." Ruth brought her to the kitchen. They sat, 3 women around a table that felt too big. Sarah stood at the counter, listening without looking like she was. "It's only a story," Mrs. Pryor started, fussing with the tin's lid. "From my gran. She grew up out past the old mill. Folks there believe the world has rooms we don't see. She said ravens can stand in both." Bethany stared at her tea. The steam rose and vanished. "You said last night there was a name." "The Raven Keeper," Mrs. Pryor said. "Not a thief, exactly. A watcher. In the old days, when storms hit the river farms, children would vanish in a blink. Doors shut, windows latched. No tracks. Gran said the keeper took them where cold and hunger couldn't find them, said it kept them safe until the debt that called it was paid." "What debt?" Ruth asked, wary. Mrs. Pryor shook her head. "Depends on the tale. Sometimes a broken promise. Sometimes a wrong that needs setting. Sometimes nothing but bad chance." She looked at Bethany then, eyes bright with pity. "They said a year and a day was the turning. If a mother kept a light and a door open in her heart, the keeper might bring the child to the threshold to choose." Sarah cleared her throat lightly. "It's kind of you to share," she said. "Stories can be a comfort. We also have to keep our minds on the work." "I know," Mrs. Pryor said. "I know." She covered Bethany's hand with her own dry one. "But there's this too, older than the road, this house." She glanced at the hallway. "It remembers things." Bethany felt the words land. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Pryor's gaze slid to the ceiling, as if she could see through it to the nursery. "Before it was 3 narrow rooms, there was one big loft that ran the length. Farmers built it that way, warm air rises. Later, someone boxed it in. Sometimes when you change a space, you leave seams that don't quite settle." She smiled without humour. "Houses keep seams like scars. You can't see them in bright light, but at night they speak." Ruth folded her arms. "Walls creak," she said. "That's all." "That's part of it," Mrs. Pryor agreed. "But sometimes a house knows when a heart inside it is breaking. It listens back." After she left, the quiet grew thick. Reed thanked them for the tea and went to check the garden again. Sarah spoke softly to Ruth about rest, about taking turns, about eating something small every few hours. Bethany ended up at the foot of the stairs, looking up the hall to the nursery door. She climbed. The room was tidy the way empty rooms are. The lamplight was off now. The cot was made. The moon nightlight grinned at nothing. Bethany sat in the chair in the corner and let her eyes wander across familiar things, books, a soft toy rabbit, the mobile with the little birds that turned if you blew on them. Tap. She held her breath. The sound had come from the wall beside the window. Not loud. A knuckle against plaster. Tap. Tap, tap. "Reed," she called, but the hallway was empty. She stood and pressed her palm to the wall. Cool, smooth. She knocked once. The sound came back dull. Tap, tap. She moved her hand across the wall, feeling for a bump, a seam, a change. Her fingers found a hairline, thin as a pencil line, running from the skirting board up to the window frame. It might have been there forever. She had never noticed it. In the tiny crack, something dark was caught. She picked at it gently with a nail until it came free. A feather. Not much more than a thread, really, black and soft as breath. She sat hard on the chair, the room swimming for a moment. "Maisie," she whispered, because saying the name made her feel less like she was falling. Sarah found her there a few minutes later. Bethany showed her the thin feather. Sarah's face did not change. She took a small plastic envelope from her pocket and held it open. "May I?" Bethany let the feather go. "Walls do settle," Sarah said in a kind voice. "Old plaster moves. Little gaps open. Bits of fluff get caught. We'll keep it with the others." She didn't say the word feather again. Bethany nodded and looked back at the line. It was nothing. It was everything. That night, after Ruth slept on the sofa and the house sank into its deep, Bethany lay awake again. She watched the slice of light under the nursery door. She told herself she would get up if she heard the tap. She told herself she would sleep because sleep was a tool, and she needed every tool. She did neither. Tap! She was on her feet before the second tap. The hall stretched long, like in a dream. The moon nightlight threw a weak grin. The wall by the window waited the way a held breath waits. Tap, tap, tap. She touched the line again. "If you can hear me," she said, feeling foolish and not caring, "if you are there, if you have her, keep her warm, keep her fed. Let her hear me when I sing." Her voice shook, "Please." The house listened. She felt it, not with her skin, not with her ears, somewhere deeper. A slow warmth moved across the boards under her feet, the way sun does at noon. It might have been the boiler clicking on. It might have been nothing at all. It felt like an answer. Days were measured after that by sound and small signs. A feather under the stair on Tuesday, caught where the riser met the tread. A faint wing shadow across the skylight at noon on Thursday, though the sky was blank and white. Friday night, the baby monitor, though unplugged and off, hummed once and flashed its dead light a pale green, then went dark again. Reed wrote each thing in his notebook without comment. Syra marked the page with the same date. In the afternoon, Bethany walked with Mrs. Pryor to the old lane behind the terrace. The hedges there grew wild. The lane ended in a stone wall left from when the city was smaller and fields pressed against it. Someone had hung a little iron charm on a nail, 2 birds cut out of a circle, wings almost touching. It turned in the breeze. "My gran said to keep a light in the window," Mrs. Pryor murmured, "and to sing." "I do," Bethany said, "every night." "Keep doing it," Mrs. Pryor said. "A year and a day is long, but not forever." When Bethany returned, the house seemed to breathe out and welcome her back. She stood in the hall and spoke to it without thinking, the way you speak to a tired friend. "I'm here," she said. "I will stay." She felt silly and then felt better. That evening, a storm rolled in. Rain hit the roof like poured beads. The gutter gurgled. In the sound of the rain, Bethany heard the raven's rough call, far off and then near, like a drum at the edge of a crowd. She went to the nursery. She turned the chair to face the window. She sang the easy lullabies first, the ones with soft words and long notes. Then she sang the one she had made up when Maisie was 3 weeks old and would not sleep unless she was held close. It had no name. It had a simple tune. It sounded like home. The wall did not tap. The feather-thin line did not widen. The monitor did not glow. But when she finished, the house sighed again, a long, slow creak that lifted up the stairs and settled into the rafters like a blessing. Bethany rested her head on the chair back and closed her eyes. For a few heartbeats, she felt something like peace. The house, the storm, the story, the seam in the wall, all of it fit together in a way she could not explain. Maybe the house did know. Maybe it was holding its side of a door she could not see. She opened her eyes and whispered into the steady rain, "Hold her for me. I will be here when you bring her back." Chapter 4. The Long Year. The house learned her routine, or maybe she learned the houses. Each night Bethany set a lamp in the front window, the same warm bulb, the same time. She cracked the nursery door an inch and turned the chair to face the window. She laid Maisie's yellow star blanket across her knees and sang. She kept a notebook on the dresser and wrote down anything that felt like more than nothing. March 18th, tap-in wall. April 2nd, feather on stair May 9th, monitor light blink 1 second. June 1st, shadow across skylight, clear sky. July 14th, raven on gutter at dawn. August 30th, seam feels warm to touch. Ruth stayed often at first, sleeping on the sofa with a hand on her phone. Syra came twice a week, then once, then every other week, but she always called. Reed stopped by with updates that were thin but honest. The case was active, he said, and he meant it, but there were fewer people in the hall and no more white suits. The loud part of the search had ended. The quiet part had begun. Neighbours brought food and then stopped because it never got eaten. Someone mowed her tiny front lawn. The boys from down the street drew chalk birds on the pavement and didn't say why. The little iron charm in the old lane, 2 birds in a circle, spun in the wind and sometimes clicked against the nail like a clock. On a soft evening in May, Mrs. Pryor walked with Bethany as far as the river and back. "Every tale has more than one telling," she said. Gran said a year and a day. The man at the feed store said a full turn of seasons. The old school teacher said exactly 1 year. Don't get caught on the numbers. She squeezed Bethany's arm. "Keep your door open." Bethany kept it open, even on days she felt like a hollow shell. She kept singing, even when her throat hurt. When words ran out, she hummed. She wrote letters to Maisie, small notes on plain paper, a few lines each. Things like, "I saw a tiny shoe in a shop window today, blue with stars. You would have liked it. And the house creaked, and I decided it was saying your name." She folded them and placed them in a box under the chair. Summer came, the kind that makes pavements shine and windows stick. Heat settled at the top of the stairs and pressed against the nursery door. Bethany sat with a cold cloth at her neck. Outside, the raven was a dark smudge on bright days, a cut-out shape hovering at the edge of sight. Once, in the still noon, she dozed and woke to the shape standing on the rail of the balcony. It tilted its head, watching her with one bright eye through the pane, then hopped sideways and was gone. The bolt held fast. The glass stayed cool. Letters from people she did not know began to arrive. Some were kind and simple, "We are thinking of you." Some were heavy with ideas. "Do this, try that, hang this charm, burn this herb, say this prayer." Bethany read the short ones and put the others in a drawer. She did not want to bind the air with rules. Her own were enough. Light in the window, door cracked, song at night, welcome if welcome came. On an afternoon of sudden rain, Syra sat with her on the floor of the nursery and sorted photos into piles, before, after, and no time at all. "People will tell you to move on," Syra said, not unkind. "Or to move out. You don't have to do either. You get to choose what helps." "What helps," Bethany said, "is being here." "Then be here," Syra said. "We'll keep watch with you." Autumn came with the smell of damp leaves and apples. School started on the street, and tiny backpacks bounced past the gate each morning. Ruth returned to her own house more often, but still spent Sundays bringing stew and the soft jumpers she always knit too big. Adam came up for a weekend and fixed every hinge and wobbly knob he could find. He stood in the nursery doorway and did not enter. "Tell me if you need anything," he said, which meant he would keep asking even if she didn't. The seam by the window changed with the weather. In cold, it felt like a line of glass. In damp, it softened. Some nights Bethany thought she heard a whisper behind it. Not words, just breath moving in a small space. Once, while she sang, the mobile over the crib turned, even though the air was still. The little paper birds lifted and circled, slow and sure, then settled. She wrote it in the notebook and drew a circle beside it. There were hard days. A door slam in the street could fold her in two. A flash of yellow on a pram in a shop window could set her shaking. She took the long way around certain corners. She learned which hours of the grocery were quiet and went only then. When grief rose like a wave she could not stand against, she stood in the hall and put her palm against the wall near the seam. Sometimes the floor warmed under her feet. Sometimes nothing happened at all. Both were answers she could live with. Winter made everything simple. The lamp in the window pushed a small bowl of light against the dark. Snow fell once and lay on the sills like salt. On that night, Bethany woke to the softest sound, the shape of a baby's contented sigh, the one Maisie used to make after milk. She sat up fast, heart thudding, and the house held its breath with her. The sound did not come again. She checked the clock. 12. She wrote it down. The days grew longer by minutes. The notebook thickened. Reed brought a new pack of envelopes and took the old ones away, each with a feather or a photo or a small nothing sealed inside. "We keep all of it," he said. "Sometimes small things matter later." He did not say later when. As the date drew near, even the house seemed to count. The stairs gave a new creak, almost like a footstep, right at the top. The monitor left unplugged on the dresser began to make a faint, regular click at night. 1, 2, 3, and then quiet. Bethany timed it. At 11:59 the click would start. At 12:01 it would stop. She told no one. She did not know how to say it without sounding like she had given up on clocks and taken up omens. On the morning of the last day she cleaned. She opened the nursery window wide to let in cold air and the smell of rain. She dusted the slats of the crib and wiped the rails with a soft cloth. She washed Maisie's blanket by hand and laid it over the chair to dry. She placed the little wooden block with the letter M on the sill so it could look out. Ruth came with a casserole and a face full of worry. "Let me stay," she said, already putting her coat on the peg. "Not tonight," Bethany said gently. "I think I need to be alone." Ruth's mouth shaped an argument, then closed. She cupped Bethany's cheek with one warm hand. "Call me if." She stopped, began again. "Call me." After she left, the house felt full of slow light. A breeze touched the seam and made it cooler. Bethany carried the box of letters to the chair and set it by her feet. She made tea and did not drink it. She stood at the front window and turned the lamp on before dusk, as if she could draw evening closer by doing it early. She moved through the rooms like a careful tide, touching the backs of chairs, the edges of frames, the place on the kitchen counter where Maisie's bottles used to stand. At 11, she went upstairs and sat. She spread the yellow star blanket across her knees and began to sing. She sang all the songs she knew. Between songs, she spoke as if Maisie were there, not loud, not pleading, just the way you talk when someone you love is in the next room and might come in at any moment. "I'm here," she said. "I kept the light on. I kept the door open. I kept your place." The monitor gave one soft click. The mobile stirred. Somewhere outside, the raven called, not rough this time, not far. It sounded like a word she almost knew. The clock on her phone turned to 11:59. The second hand felt like a foot on a stair. Bethany laid her palm flat on the wall by the seam. The plaster was cool first, then warm, then neither. She let her hand rest there and kept singing, voice low and steady, eyes on the open inch of the door. Midnight was coming. She could feel it in the wood. She could feel it in her bones. She did not move. She waited. Chapter 5. The Midnight Whisper. Midnight came and stood in the doorway. The house held its breath. The lamp in the front window burned a small circle in the glass. Upstairs, Bethany sat in the nursery chair with Maisie's yellow star blanket over her knees. Her palm rested on the thin seam in the wall by the window. The plaster was cool at first, then neither cool nor warm, just there like a hand meeting a hand. The baby monitor clicked once, then again. The tiny green light, dead for months, woke for a heartbeat and went dark. Bethany did not move. "I'm here," she said, voice low. "I kept the light. I kept the door. I kept your place." Something in the house answered with a soft creak that rose from the floorboards and climbed into the rafters. Not wind, not pipes. A listening sound. Outside, a raven called. Not the harsh rattle she had heard that first night. This call was rounder, shaped like a question, almost like a name. The seam in the wall gave a slow, almost secret tap. "Tap, tap, tap. I hear you," she whispered. The mobile over the crib turned, though the air was still. Paper birds lifted, floated, and settled again. The moon nightlight smiled its weak blue smile at the corner. The cot's sheet lay smooth and bright in the small lamp glow from the hall. Then she heard it. A baby's soft coo, the sound made between sleep and waking, the one Maisie used to make when she found her own thumb. It came from the crib. It came from nowhere. It filled the room in a way that made Bethany's heart rise so fast she had to press the blanket to her chest. "Maisie?" The name came out on a breath. Another sound, the quietest sigh. The cot's sheet pressed in a little, as if a small weight had found its place. The shape lasted a second, then was gone, like a dimple in water after a drop. Bethany stood slowly, afraid to break whatever thin bridge had formed. She did not switch on the big light. She did not step too close. She stood at the rail and looked down at the empty sheet and saw in the faintest dust the curve of a small handprint that wasn't there before. "Sweetheart," she whispered, and the room felt larger, as if walls could lean back to make space for a word. The raven called again, nearer now. A shadow crossed the nursery window, the shape of wide wings sliding across glass. The balcony bolt held fast. The window latch sat neat and firm. Still, the room dimmed as if a cloud had passed in front of the moon, though no moonlight reached here. Bethany kept her hand on the seam. "If you are the keeper," she said, her voice even, "I kept the watch. I sang, I waited the year. Bring her to the threshold to choose." The seam warmed under her palm, not hot, but alive, like breath on skin. The mobile's birds lifted again and hung there, caught on an unseen draft. The baby monitor, dark as a stone, gave a low hum like a throat clearing. From the hall, the lamplight stretched and thinned. It drew back from the nursery door, not out, but in, as if the doorway were a mouth about to speak. The air took on the scent of damp leaves and cold iron. The tiny M block on the sill trembled and settled. A shape gathered in the corner by the window. It was not a person, not a bird. It was the idea of both, tall and slight, edges soft as smoke. Where a face should be, there was a place the eye could not rest. Where a heart should be, a slow pulse showed, the colour of an ember seen through ash. Its wings were not wings, not really, more like the shadow left when something powerful moves. Bethany's knees wanted to give, but they did not. She stood steady and kept her palm on the seam. "Please," she said, and the word had no decoration, only weight. "Please." The shape turned its head the way a raven does, quick and careful, as if choosing the next peck. The air in the room cooled and then warmed, like breath out and in. The crib sheet pressed again as if a small body had shifted. The faintest, sweetest sound rose, a baby's sleepy murmur, the start of a cry, the swallow that follows. Bethany closed her eyes. She did not reach in. She did not look for more than the room would give. She stood still in her own small square of floor and let every part of her say what her mouth could not. "I am here. I will always be here." The shape stepped closer without moving. It was nearer and not nearer at the same time, the way a story is near even when it happened long ago. The air smelled now of rain on stone and feather oil and a hint of milk, warm from a bottle. "I kept my side," Bethany said, opening her eyes. "I kept the light and the door and the song." The mobile turned once more and stopped with all the paper birds facing the crib, like listeners leaning in. The seam in the wall grew warm enough to make her palms sweat. Her breath slowed to match a rhythm she did not set. A small weight brushed the edge of the blanket where it hung over the crib rail, the way a baby's foot might catch a fold. The sheet drew in. The tiny handprint deepened. Bethany's mouth trembled. "I love you," she said, and every letter felt like a stone placed where a river runs fast. The house gave a long, low creak, a kind of answer. The lamp in the hall flickered once and steadied. From the gutter outside, there was the soft click a raven makes when it is thinking. Then the room went very dark. It was not the dark of a switch being turned. It was the dark of clouds moving over a hill. The night pressed forward and filled the corners. Bethany could still see the outline of the crib and the glow of the moon nightlight, but colour drained away until only edges remained. Across that dark, a feather touched her mouth. It was the lightest thing, soft and slow, sliding along her lip as if to hush her. A breath followed at her ear, cool first, then warm, like a secret about to be told. The hairs on her arms lifted. Her heart stuttered once and then held. The words whispered were clear. "She's safe. She will always be safe, but she is mine now." Bethany left the house that night, never to return.
This was The Raven's Feather, written by Beryl Coops. I hope you enjoyed my short story. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. I have written over 500 short stories over the years under many pen names. I will be updating these and recording them under the Beryl Coops name. I will be listing them on YouTube as fast as we can get them recorded. They will include historical drama, humor, adventure, romance, period drama, mystery, thriller, war stories, spy stories, revenge, horror, psychological horror, dystopian, disaster, children's stories, love stories, and more. Too many to name. Something for everyone. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up. It helps others find my channel. Until next time, thank you for listening to the end.